Director, I appreciate you and your staff showing up today and giving us an opportunity to talk about this toll adjustment. And I presume what you mean by a toll adjustment is a 45% toll rate increase. Is that
on the largest commercial vehicles, yes.
Right, 45% toll rate increase.
Right.
I want to talk a minute about transparency and ask you a question about that, because you've used that terminology quite a few times. You had 3 hearings across the state of New York on this issue. You had them in the midst of August, when many people, of course, are on vacation, difficult times. From here in the Capital District, most of those sites were 2.5 to 3 hours to get there. Myself and Assemblyman McLaughlin send a letter to you, as you know, requesting that you have a hearing in the Capital Region. Is not the Capital Region significant enough to have a hearing for their taxpayers, for their truckers, for their family farms, for their small businesses? Don't we have one of the most widely used tolls in the area?
We do.
Why couldn't you have a hearing here in the Capital Region?
Sir, we were required to have 3 public hearings, and we distributed the locations or the geography of those hearings so that we believed they were reasonable locations for folks to get to. There was no
so you did basically what you were required to do and no more. You think that respects the Capital Region taxpayers here?
The taxpayer, I think that...
well, let me tell you, we had a hearing Wednesday.
Right.
Many of the individuals are here, the trucking people, small family farms, National Federation of Independent Businesses, the Business Council. I can give you a summary of what their input was. 22 of the speakers were opposed to the rate increase, and 0 were for it. So we're going to send you a report on exactly what everybody had to say. I know you said there were 1,300 written requests you got, or written presentations, is that right?
Are you talking about hearing testimony?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that
I think
much.
so.
Oh, how many were there?
I believe we probably had, I would guess, around 150 to 170 speakers out of the 3 hearings.
150 to 175 speakers out of 22 million people.
Well, we have also,
or 20.
We also have, a phone line and internet access where people can email their comments in, and I think
how many of those
overall, I think, I'm guessing it's 2,200.
2,200
responses.
Could you tell me how many were supporting a 45% rate increase on the Thruway and how many were opposed?
That is actually something I get to. I don't have it now, but there were a fair number of people that were canal-focused that did support, or from the construction industry or the design industry.
But you can't give me the numbers.
I don't have it here. I can give you the numbers. I just don't have it in front of me right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll go beyond that. You didn't want to have a hearing. Mr. Director, we had a hearing Wednesday,
right,
which we asked you or any of your staff people to show up to make a presentation open to the public. There's 30 people here. There were close to 100 people at that hearing Wednesday. You didn't show up. You didn't send anybody to show up. You got a pretty good staff over there. You couldn't send somebody to give directions to the people of the Capital Region to have them hear their concerns?
Yeah. I'm not sure that we didn't send someone. I think someone
snuck in there.
Not to make a presentation, but I think we had someone attend. But again, we'll verify that.
If someone showed up, we didn't know. But if they were there, we would have loved to have them make a presentation and defend a 45% rate increase on the Thruway. Why wouldn't you do that? You use transparency a lot. That doesn't sound like transparency to me.
Mm-hmm.
No comment on that? Okay, thank you. I got another question here. You talked about the truckers not paying their fair share, I guess. Let me tell you something about the truckers and small business. And I'm no economist, and neither are most of us here, but we understand something, what my good colleague over here said. When a family farm, who, by the way, has been hit by the quadfecta of negative activity for them, Irene and Lee, they had the heat early on, then they had the frost, then they had the severe storms with the hail, then they had the torrid summer. Now they're going to have a 45% rate increase for vegetables and fruits to travel across this state when the lowest production for many of those in the history of the state of New York has been created. To a person, the Golub Company, NFIB, every small business said, this is a no-brainer. We're either going to reduce our economic footprint, we're going to lay off workers. This is a consumer tax. We're going to pass it on to the consumers. They have to stay in business. A couple said, this amounts to, well, Golub said, $250,000. Another group said, this is 2 staff people we're going to have to lay off or could have hired. So when you multiply that times the small businesses across this state, how can you suggest that if you're going to penalize Peter being the small businesses in the trucking industry, you're really not going to penalize Paul, the consumers in the state of New York, who they're just going to pass this on to?
I think we've had a pretty full discussion already this morning, Assemblyman, with respect about the balance and the obligations that we have, the fiduciary responsibilities that we have as a public authority to maintain and operate a system so that those businesses that you reference have the ability to access the marketplace and conduct commerce and business effectively. And part of that balance was looking at the disparity between passenger vehicles versus the commercial vehicles that tend to do thousands of times more wear and tear on the system than an average passenger vehicle. And yet the toll for those largest commercial vehicles is very disproportionate. And even to go beyond that, when you compare the New York State Thruway Authority's toll rates with other adjacent states, for example,
I'm interested in that wear and tear you talked about.
Sure.
Because the governor is talking about a statewide municipal fiscal oversight board. Director, do you know what that means? Our municipalities, cities, counties, villages are going bankrupt in the state of New York. Do you think they need huge trucks traveling across, traversing their roads, where they're going to have to pass that on to their taxpayers? If it costs you 45% more to travel on a road, would you travel on that road that costs you 45% more, or would you divert it? Every person who spoke, the businesses who use trucks, the trucking industry said, we're just going to go into residential neighborhoods. They're going to impact the cost and the abuse of residential neighborhoods. But how about the quality of life and safety features? For a young child walking to school on a beautiful road he passes where he doesn't see tandem trucks shooting down the road to try to make their goods and services, because we're in a recession now. I think you know that, Director. And we're trying to get goods and services, small businesses, to the consumer as quickly as possible. It's going to have a profound impact on the quality of life and safety and the cost to local municipalities. And I know you talked about that a little bit, but I think it's a little bit more serious than you suggested. Let me ask you about Easy Pass. About 2 weeks ago, I was on exit 25. I stopped at one of the Thruway outlets. You sell Easy Passes on Thruway outlets?
Yes.
Yeah. They had no Easy Passes. We went back again the next day. We have no Easy Passes. Why? Well, they break. They're not working, the ones we give you. But let me give you a flyer. And they gave me a flyer. These are the places where you can get the Easy Pass. You know what it said on the flyer? One of the places I could get an Easy Pass just a couple weeks ago? Albany. That site's been closed down for how long? Do you know?
Are you talking about our service area, Assemblyman, or what are you talking
To
about?
purchase an Easy
Service
Pass,
plaza.
we used to have a facility in Albany.
There was
They
one at-
closed it down. In order to get an Easy Pass, where's the closest place? Do you know?
We can get it any one of our service plazas. There are retail outlets that you can get them. I'm not sure where you're talking about, where you stopped at a,
I stopped at a service plaza at 25.
yeah.
First of all, they had none because they said they weren't working, they were broke. They had to redo them. I understood that. They said, but here's a flyer. Now you're handing out a flyer that tells me as a consumer I can travel to Albany, which I did. I went to the site, and it actually had Easy Pass, and you know what? It was empty. How many other people got that and traveled over there, used their gasoline? That's not good organization. That's not good management, handing out flyers which still have the name of a facility that doesn't provide Easy Passes.
We'll check into that. Thank you for the information.
Yeah, take a
I
look at
wasn't
that.
aware.
Mr. Lorette from Tom DiNapoli's office was at our hearing this past Wednesday. And I know you've talked about his recommendations in the audit. But I think what was significant, because he brought the audit, was what the controller had to say. His final thought on was this: we should not even consider, not a 45% rate increase, any rate increase before the Thruway Authority lives up to the audit and the adjustments I suggested they make. So I'd really be interested myself in how closely you are moving towards those adjustments for fiscal sanity that the comptroller has suggested for you. He's the main bean pounder of the state, statewide elected official, the comptroller, and I think when he gives guidance, he should be heard and listened to. One last question. Are you elected to your position?
No.
Are you appointed?
Yes.
Who appoints you?
The Board of Directors of the Thruway Authority.
Who appoints the Board of Directors of the Thruway Authority?
The Governor of the State of New York.
The governor
Yes,
appoints them all.
correct.
So you can only be removed by who? The board itself? Or,
Yes,
in other words, you don't go before the voters every 2 years after you make a decision.
that's correct.
So basically, you're a bureaucrat and not representative to the people of New York State. You're representative to that board who keeps you there and maintains you by appointment. And I would say to you, we are representative of the people of New York State. We do have to go before them every year. So we are accountable. And that concerns me when you're talking about a tax or a fee increase. And I have to tell you, we have a piece of legislation that will remove the opportunity for you to make a 45% rate increase on the people of New York State and move it over to the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor, who have to go before the voters every 2 years, who are responsible and representatives. I just want to let you know that we're going to work very hard to get that passed.
Thank you.
But thank you for being here this time.
Thank you, Assemblyman.
Thank you.